what did the 10th century look like in Islamic Spain or Al-Andalus? Well, if you remember, it was thriving, prosperous, cosmopolitan, and urban. Think of these two symbols of Islamic Spain. First, the Cordoba Library, which held 400,000 volumes and was the largest library when, at the same time, in Western Christian Europe, the largest library had only 400 manuscripts. And the Cordoba Library championed the translation of Greek philosophy. In fact, it is thanks to Islamic Spain that Western and Northern Europeans rediscovered Aristotle, especially in the Christian tradition. The second example is that of Hasdai ibn Shiprut, the high-ranking ruler of his own Jewish community, who was elevated to the title of vizier, that is prime minister, by King Abdel-Rahman III, because he spoke and wrote Arabic, as well as Latin, Mozarabic, and Hebrew. He possessed a profound knowledge of everything Islamic and Andalusian. He was a pious Jew, a philosopher, a physician, a Jewish intellectual and political in the land that was not Jewish. And in 949, he was the head of the delegation representing the Caliphate of Cordoba in foreign negotiation. So if we contrast to the rest of Christian Europe, at the same time, what we see in Christian Europe that you will read about is two important developments. First, a commercial revolution, and two, a religious reform. Now, if we focus on religious reform, I want to encourage you to think about what they were, these elements of religious reform, and the impulse behind them. That is the impulse at the time that emerged of this radical change to free the church from the world, be it from that of rulers, of sex, of money, wealth, or power. First, you have the Cluniac reform you can read about, which was also challenged and came at the same time as new monastic orders of poverty that your textbook details. Second, you have the role of the Pope and its expansion, especially over the issues of clerical marriage, simony, lay investiture. Third, you had the investiture conflict that you read about in your primary documents and in the textbook. Now, this is an important development because until then, what you had was an interdependent relationship between the church and the state, where the church provided the solution to the problems faced by the state, meaning it was monks and clerics who had the education to administer the state, and the church therefore had the keys to the kingdom, that is, the ability to legitimate monarchical rule. Conversely, the state provided the church with protection for its mission and property. This had important consequences. It redefined the relationship of the church and state, the emperor and the state, this investiture conflict, and it separated the Western and an Eastern church. It led to the schism between the Roman Catholic and the Greek Orthodox Church, which will remain permanent. Fourth, you had the development of the sacraments and how the church invested everyday life for ordinary people. Now, I want you to pay attention to the fact that the church emphasized marriage at the same time that the celibacy in the church became mandatory. Now, why is that? Is a question I pose to you to think about what seems to be two contradictory developments at the same time and how it participates in this impulse to free the church from the world. And last, you have the Crusades. Now, here is the paradox. The church wants to free itself from the world, and yet at the same time, it seems to be more involved in the lives of ordinary people and in the ways the world is being run. In fact, the Crusades directly contradicted the impulse to free the church from the world and instead signified how widely the church would lead and guide people's lives, even in military enterprises and overseeing violence. Remember that a crusade was a combination of a holy war and pilgrimage. So we have to ask ourselves, why was it so violent? Remember the massacre of Jews, these pogroms that took place during the Crusades. And this is against a community that was protected and exploited. They were neighbors to the Christians, but they were segregated. So much so that Pope Urban II declared in his proclamation in 1095, and I quote, "From the confines of Jerusalem and the city of Constantinople, a horrible take has gone forth and very frequently has been brought to our ears, namely that a race from the kingdom of Persians, an accursed race, a race so utterly alienated from God, a generation forsaken, which has neither directed its heart nor entrusted its spirit to God, has invaded the lands of those Christians and has depopulated them by swords, pillage, and fire." And here notice this development, that at the moment the church says it wants to free itself from the world, it gains in power, and that power is expressed by being incredibly more rigid and exclusionary towards both Jews and Muslims. This helps understand why the Crusades proved to be so popular and such a part of Christian mythology, because they were never just about territorial or economic expansion. After all, only the First Crusade was successful, as your textbook summarizes. In fact, as one historian has explained, the Crusades were fueled by myths and passions that were effective in getting people to act, especially since they could now define themselves against those they considered heretics. And in these developments show the radical changes that come in the wake and with the commercial revolution, and the place that the church holds, not just in directing private faith, but in the governance of the world, in relationship to the state, to ordinary people, and to those that the church declares to be heretics.